between guys. Rely on yourself in no way. Believe.
Morning, everybody. It is Tuesday. Tuesday. Welcome to everyone in the chat. It was a good weekend for me. Sorry I missed yesterday. Of course, I told you I was. It was a pretty long day yesterday. Painful day. We had a slight mishap with one of the pianos. A slight one. And my right arm is now feeling the mal benefits of that one small mishap. You know, you learn something new about piano moving every day. And sometimes it's not always good, but the bad thing can always help you not do something bad in the future. So um, I'm okay. It's just going to take some time for the arm to feel a little better. Let's just talk about it like it's going to take some time for the just right here. See what happened was we were trying to get it up some stairs on the outside, but it was a little bit steeper than we normally would have for stuff. And um, as it was going up, it tilted back a little bit more, and I'm the brakes, and so it kind of the lid opened up, and the keys were exposed, and they just kind of went, said hello to my arm. So it's a little bit inflamed, not broken or nothing like that. I'm not that kind of injured, but it hurt. It hurt it a little bit. So I just got to be more cautious in the future. But I'm here. Welcome, Young. So I want to address this simply out of concern for people who hold certain individuals in way too high a regard. And I mean that when that applies to everybody, including if there are any, I highly doubt it, that put either Straight Talk or any other platform that I might be a part of like that. I don't want that. I don't need that. But in this situation here, there seemed to have been a string of events that have come forward, and it's not new, because if you guys remember, I'm old enough to remember the Jimmy Swaggart incident. And I'm old enough to remember that whole debacle and how that came out and how his apology came and how he got back into the pulpit. I'm familiar with all that. So it's not like it's not new, but it does seem to be more prevalent. It seems to be something of a norm now. The problem I see is twofold. One, that it'll keep happening, but two, I think what'll end up you'll see start happening, it'll get overlooked as though it's part of the office. I fear that the way people have taken on this nonsense is that they will look at it as though it is. And I bet you've heard people say, he's only human. You can't expect nobody to be perfect. You shouldn't judge. Who are you to talk? It's not judging if you're holding the person to the standard of the Bible. It's not judging if you're holding them to the standard of God's word. It can't be judging. You're not the one judging. The word is judging them, not me. I'm not the one judging them. People asked me before, why don't you become a preacher? And I told them why. I said, I don't fit the office of it. I don't. There are qualifications that are required for someone to become that, a bishop or whatever you want to call it, leader. I am not in that position. My life choices have left me without that option, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. Because I understand that is not me saying God doesn't forget. He forgave me, but He has standards, and I'm abiding by those standards. Standards. Here they are. First Timothy chapter 3. This is a faithful saying. If a man desires the position of a bishop, and let's talk about bishop real quick, it is one entrusted with the position and authority and oversight over the body. Okay? You are in a position of authority and oversight. A bishop must be blameless. They start right off the top, blameless. I understand that in Christ I'm a new creature, and that before Christ, before God, I am blameless. I'm blameless. In His life, in His blood, I am blameless because I'm forgiven. But that is not the blameless they're talking about. We are talking about because you're overseeing humans, you must be blameless before men. You must be blameless before men. A husband of one wife, there goes my reasoning why I couldn't, because I'm not. I had one before. Temperate, sober minded, of good behavior, hospitable, able to teach, not given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not covetous, one who rules his own house well, having his children in submission with all reverence. For if a man does not know how to rule his own house, how will he take care of God's church? Not a novice, so not young, not like people like Michael Todd, who thinks he's in his 30s and thinks he knows exactly what life is about. Little wet behind the ear dude. Lest being puffed up with pride, he fall into the same condemnation as the devil. Moreover, he must have a good testimony among those who are outside, lest he fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. That is a long laundry list. There are scores of pastors and bishops that fail that litmus test. And yet, there you go. They're now in the pulpit. T.D. Jakes, he's somehow a pastor when he has every affiliation with the devil himself. Make that one make sense. We'll be covering a few of them. And I want you to tell me if that list that you saw, not my list, this is not a Marlin list, this is not a straight talk, this is a God list. This is a God list. If this is a God list, I'm not judging anybody. I'm holding you to the standard that God has for the position you think you have. That's all. I'm not judging nobody. I have told people over and over and over my history. Everybody that has followed this platform can go back a year and find my testimony online. I have not hidden that from anybody. I have not hidden my faults, my old ways. I have not hidden that from anyone. In fact, I have been completely frank about my struggles, about what addictions I had. I have been completely frank with it. From the very beginning, I've told people who I am, what I've done, what I didn't want to do, what I struggled with. Everybody knows. And I know for a fact that as far as the qualifications listed on that chapter, I don't fit it. I desire to do what God says. I want to be able to tell people about Him, which is why I'm doing this. But pastoralship, Because if I were to encounter somebody from my past, I am not without blame. I'm not.
Only on CBS News Texas, we are learning new allegations now of disturbing behavior towards young female members of a church congregation. That congregation from former Gateway Church founding pastor Robert Morris. This comes as the South Lake megachurch released new details of an internal investigation that Morris allegedly sexually abused a 12-year-old girl when he was in his 20s. The church also acknowledges there is now a criminal investigation, but said it does not involve current leadership. Our Don White tonight speaking exclusively with a woman who says she flagged concerns about Morris almost 4 decades ago.
What happened to Cindy Clemishire was heartbreaking and vile.
That's how Gateway Church elder Trey Wilbanks started Sunday service.
We denounce sexual abuse in all of its forms, and we feel deep sorrow for those who have been victimized by such despicable actions.
Wilbanks told members
I want to have you understand something real quick. If something was spoken about 40 years ago, there is no, when I say no way of something like that, there is no way you as a assistant leader of any kind could not have known. But because it became public knowledge, now you have to renounce it, denounce it, say something against it. They knew. The entire staff knew. Don't hand me this crap about, we didn't, and now that we found out we're taking steps. Nah, no, fam. There were words floating around for 40 years. You didn't investigate. You heard of something that might relate to a pastor and you don't look into it, then you're not following the word. That's plain and simple. That's easy for me to see that your entire congregation, everything you're doing there has nothing to do with God. Nothing. It can't. It cannot. Because in order to take the blame off of that person, you would have to look into it. And you didn't. For 40 years, you didn't look into it because you do not follow God. That is the only thing I can see. Because if you did, and it was reprehensible to you, you would have done something for it. And you didn't for 40 years. Even just the concept of maybe a 12-year-old, a 12-year-old, we're not talking about a man who is a pastor who might have had an affair with an elder's wife or someone, adult woman in the congregation. We ain't talking about that, because that could be easily chalked up to gossip. I can see that being chalked up to gossip. I can see it. Even then, though, you still need to look into it. But a 12-year-old, now you knew. All of y'all knew. The entirety of Gateway needs to be shut down. Y'all knew. That's not leadership. You just trying to keep the money coming in, and the best way to keep the money coming in is to say we didn't have anything to do with it. Sorry, whatever he did on his own accord. That wasn't on us. That's what that was. You're passing the buck in hopes that people will ignore it. People will forget that it happened. If you have, secondarily, if you have to read it to apologize, you're lying. If you have to read your apology, you're lying. You're afraid you're going to say something legally to get you in trouble. That's what you're afraid of. That is what the entirety of that congregation is afraid of. Then there's this guy.
Well-known Dallas pastor Dr. Tony Evans stepped aside from leading the 10,000-member Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship. Evans cited a past sin as the reason for the move after more than 40 years at the pulpit.
Don't you find that number kind of weird? They all hit that big 40, And they just say, okay, now I can confess what I did. Hear me out. He's a pastor, right? And I know plenty people love Pastor Evans. I don't care if you love him. That's on you. I didn't. I don't follow the fool. I'm good. Here's why I call him a fool. You ready? I'm going to prove to you why he's a fool. He knew while he was a preacher, he already assumed the role of teaching, of bishop, of leader. He already assumed that, which means that the blameless title should have applied to him already. You're telling me you're stepping away from ministry due to a past sin, which means it was happening while you were already preaching, which means you knew, which means you blatantly carried on in an affront to God, knowing it, only to come forward and say, now I know. I'm going to say something now. I don't even care what it is. He believes that it was something worthy of stepping away. Not me. The same thing with Gino. As I know it's a sin. Yes, I know it's a sin, but I still like it. I know that listening to jazz music is a sin, but I love jazz music, and I've been doing this thing for 40 years. They will admit to you that what they're doing in their own, each man has to make up in his mind, right? Because some observe days, some don't observe days, some observe feasts, some don't, some observe foods, and some eat this and that. Everybody decides what will go against their conscience, right? He knows, he says out loud that he knows it is a sin, but he loves it. And you up there preaching, and you call yourself an apostle. You call yourself an apostle. You are not blameless. You have admitted that you know what you're doing to you is a sin. And you admit that you love it to the point where you can't stop doing it. That is not only against the office, that's against your walk. Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? You are blatantly walking in sin and admitting it out loud that you love it, but you're behind the pulpit. And I don't care what Tony did. I don't. It was enough for him to step away from the pulpit, though. And he's only doing it now in his old age after, more than likely, pension has kicked in. Retirement age is now on the horizon. He can afford to say, now I'm letting go all my skeletons. And even then, not saying it. But he's a leader. But he's a leader. I don't understand. Then you have people like Carl Lentz. Y'all remember Carl Lentz? The one that was over Hillsong? The one that hung out with Justin Bieber and all that? Remember that guy? They all have this inability, it seems, to identify the issues that are blatantly against their office, but they continue in them anyway. They continue in them anyway. This is how we used to dress with Justin Bieber, a pastor. This is crazy to me. Now you have the same men like that raising their daughters to be just like them. You look at people like T.D. Jakes and you look at his Jezebel daughter, Sarah. One, she ain't supposed to be in the office, but there she goes trying to act like she should be. Two, she's up there talking about changing dimensions and all these other spiritual other mumbo jumbo that she thinks, oh, now because my father spoke in all this nonsense, I could just be just like him. The office that was supposed to be sacred and dedicated to God has become a cesspool. Or at least let's put it this way, the title has. The office will never be corrupted because God ordained the office. So the office itself will never be corrupted, but the face that has been put on it definitely has. There are a huge amount of these pastors that ought not to be in that role at all. A lot of these healing ministries and demonic ministries people and all of those, same thing. Because they're in it for what? What exactly are they in it for? What did the word say they were in it for? What did it say we shouldn't be in it for? Look at Timothy, right? This is what it says, if you remember correctly. Okay, this is what it says. Let's go back to what it says. Want to make sure we get this. Go up here to 2. A bishop must be blameless, a husband of one wife, temperate, sober-minded, good behavior, hospitable, able to teach, not given to much wine or not to wine, not violent, not greedy for money. But yet still so many of them, that's all they do. That's all they do. I want you to hear it from their own mouth, okay? Now, you read for the Bible. The Bible says something, right? We read what the word said, right? We read what the Bible said. Now, let's hear what a pastor says to his congregation.
If you are broke, you are in sin.
Because it is all about money. Every last one of them preach money. This is why the health and wealth gospel is a complete affront to the office, first of all, but secondarily and most importantly, an affront to salvation. But when you look at the office itself, when we're talking about lacking leaders, all of them that push this nonsense are stepping out of the role. They push the very thing that is named in their office that they should not be pushing there. That's the number one thing that they talk about. How God wants you rich. It's all about the rich, all about the money, all about the money, 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 money. Money. It is crazy to me. But at the same time, it's understandable because they are not preaching the word. They're not preaching the word. What they do, though, they've created a brand new office for themselves. They're creating a brand new office for themselves where they are the arbiters of all things good, holy, wonderful, godly. They don't follow God. God has to follow them. Another protege of T.D. Jakes, not the guy on the right, the bald headed one.
Multiplication. Here's the other problem with the church is that anytime a person is in need, y'all go to running and dropping money. But let me tell you something, the poor will be with you always. And there is no blessing connected to blessing the poor other than getting back what you gave to them, but no multiplication.
You hear? It is about them. Which is why I did when I said what I said about the church not being what people see today, what the world sees isn't the church. It's a gathering of people measuring themselves against people to make themselves look good. It says, blessed are the poor. He says there's nothing good in being poor. God even tells you when you come before him, people say, when did I ever see you hungry? When did I ever see you in here? As long as you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. But this fool, this blasphemous, bald idiot is standing up there telling people there is no blessing in giving to the poor. They are not brothers. I want people to be clear about this. They do not follow God. And if they're not following God, they can't be my brothers. They are not my brother. They are sinful human beings, and they have not repented for where they have never tasted and never participated. They have not come to God. They have come to themselves. I will never call them brothers. Never. Until they have turned, I cannot call them brother. I can't. There's nothing brother about them. We for too long have just, because he goes to church, that's my brother, this and brother. Because he shows up on a Sunday, he's a brother? Or a sister? So if I get stranded in my car for one night and don't make it home, am I homeless now? I spend one night outside my home, I'm homeless? This has gone on for so long that the unfortunate thing is that there are many, and I mean many, 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 that are being taken advantage of. Because let's be honest, I can't say that they're not seeking. They are. They're hoping that where they're at is a good place. They do want something more. They do want God. They do. But how they were introduced to him and where they are now makes them fully believe that they're there. Which is why it says, look, many of you shouldn't be, because there'll be a greater punishment for you if you become a teacher and this is the kind of stuff you pull. Be careful. He said, my brethren, let many of you not become teachers, knowing that we shall endure a stricter judgment. If you assume to yourself that you are a preacher, teacher, and this is the kind of nonsense you say and pull in the name of God, rest assured that your punishment will be much worse. Much worse. And because the gospel has now become a thing of, oh, love and flowers and rainbows and unicorns and all that stuff, to where everybody has to be accepted, this is what we allow for now. We have gone away from God's standard because it's too strict. It's too exclusive. We call it judgmental now. You can't speak against that. You can't speak against that because people have lives and they have a history now. Yeah, and it's all worth nothing. But you can't say that. You can't say that. You can't look somebody in their eye that is looking for God and said, your whole life, all that you've lived for yourself before, is meaningless. All that you've done in an effort to further yourself will be burned up. It's chaff. The life you value so much and hold so dearly to will end, and it will end in fire and fury, and there's nothing you can do about it. But the life that Christ offers you will endure forever. But you cannot bring any of that crap with you. You cannot bring this idea that I have something valuable to bring. You have nothing valuable to bring. You offer nothing. You will be nothing. You have nothing to offer Christ. Nothing. There is of no worth, that nothing of any worth that you possessed before Christ, not a thing. Filthy rags. And that is the beauty of it. The beauty of it is that you have nothing, yet he gave his all. You have nothing to offer, and he still took you. You have no value, but he made you valuable. That is the blessing. Everybody wants the superficial, the topical, the one seeing. Everybody needs to see me in this, in my flash, and my flish, and all that stuff. They need to see me. All these flashy preachers telling you about what you got. God's going to give you this, and just wait. He's going to, your blessings on the way, and you got a whole bunch of blessings coming. Oh, you want that job? He going to give it to you. You want this money? He going to give it to you. You need a car? He going to give it to, like God's Oprah or something. When did God become Oprah? When did God become Ricky Lake? Price is Right. When did he say, spin the wheel and see what you get? I've said this before and I'll say it again. If nothing else comes my way in this world, and I mean absolutely nothing, tomorrow I get up and there's no paycheck, no money, nothing, no food. If that happens tomorrow, will I turn around and say to God, how could you abandon me? Or will I say, God's still God, and I'm still his? You see, when we understand the dynamic of who God is to who we are, that'll be no problem. Many do not understand the dynamic. They do not understand the hierarchy. They do not understand the power dynamic going on here. Everybody thinks they're on the same level as God. Everybody thinks God's owing them something. Everybody thinks they're here for him to do something to prove himself. Not realizing the fact that you're here is already proof of himself. And the fact that you draw breath is proof of himself. And the fact that the ability for you to not draw breath anymore is also proof that he exists. It's not the blessings. It's not all the gifts. It's not all the cars. It's not the house. It's not the money. It's not the job. You waking up, eyelids, blood pumping, proof. The removal of all that, proof. Every single thing that happens in life and death is proof that he exists. And not only that, is proof that you are nothing compared to him. You can die. You can die and be gone. He defeated death. We talked about this idea of what Job encountered. We talked about that. When God showed up and talked to Job, he put Job right in his place. We talked about that. Why do we still feel as though somehow we're bigger, better, more and we can be braggadocious about stuff that God is in charge of? Matthew 6. Therefore, I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, what you will drink, or about your body, what you will put on. Yet still, that's all they preach about. They preach about the worrying of life. What about your money? What about your house? What about your job? What about your cars, your kids? All that they have you and tell you to. Make sure you pray to the point where you worry about it. Is not life more important than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Which of you by worrying can add a cubit to his stature? So why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And yet I say to you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Now, if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? And that's not you saying, I am going to make sure that I look for that blessing. No. You seek God first, and all these things will be. Remember he said that? That was his statement, was it not? He said, seek first the kingdom, and all the rest of it will be added to you. But did you know that in seeking the kingdom, you're not concerned about what else gets added? Did you know that in all of our seekings of the kingdom, it becomes about him and not about us? I want to show you something, okay? I want to show you this because I think I took the picture and I didn't know why at the time. I did kind of because I sent it to my daughter. Okay, I sent it to her. And I know it's a better quality picture than that. No, it's not. Okay, I want to show this to you. I went and had coffee with an old friend of mine that I was being spoken to about for a while now, and I have not. God's been putting his name and stuff in my head to reach back out to. We haven't spoken in 4 years, 4.5. And we had a falling out. And this guy was the officiating minister at my wedding to my current wife. And we had a falling out, and for a while now, he's been telling me I need to reach out to this individual. So I did. After about the third time. And we managed to meet Sunday. It was a great time. We got to kind of talk about where the disjoint happened, and we both acknowledged that this was something that we need to bring to a close, this distance. The whole make every effort to live in the unity and bond of peace, as far as it be with you brothers and all that. So we did. And as I walked out to leave, and Bianca came to pick me up, there was this right in front of the store, and this flower bed, right? And this one, like underneath the green leaves, there's right underneath, there is a bunch of flowers, right? But the first person that came to my mind was my daughter. So I sent it to her because she loves stuff like that, because she paints it. But it also reminds me that she's my pop of color. Now, my boys are too, but she is my pop of color. Y'all might say y'all don't have favorites in your kids' life. Stop lying. You know you do. If you have more than one, everybody know you got a favorite. Stop trying to front. And it's okay, as far as I'm concerned, to have a favorite. I love all of them. But just let's be honest about some stuff, okay? Let's just be honest. I love my daughter. She was my first kid. That means something. The same thing with my wife has a favorite, but she treats all of them with love. But please don't get it twisted that y'all don't have a favorite one. Come on now. Okay? Don't act like I'm the only one. And even if I am the only one, I don't care if you don't. I'm going to admit that I do. Okay? I'll admit that. Because she and I have been through some things that we have not been through with the others. Okay? So that's why. Anyway, I saw this, and it fits perfectly with today, because I want you to look at this picture. And I want you to understand that this flower does nothing but praise God all day. The flower itself does nothing but pay homage to God all day. And God supplies its water, the nutrients in the soil, the sun, all of it. God supplies that. And this is the result of a flower constantly reflecting God's glory all the time. You see that? Do you see the colors? Do you see the colors of that thing? Do you see how pow, it just pops out right in the middle of all that green? It's just bam, purple. The designs, everything about this flower is crafted. Everything about this flower is crafted. It's crafted. It's built to just wow you. It takes no glory for its own, though. Its reflection is what you see. It's a reflection of God's ability. It's a reflection of God's hand. It's a reflection of his creativity. It's a reflection of him. It itself didn't do that. That's its nature because of its creator. When we start to understand that those things that these people are preaching are not of God, you'll understand more why the things that come out, come out. They are not leaders. They're not pastors. They're not bishops. They're not any of those things. They are not of God. They're not brothers. They're not. If they were, for them to take the roles that they do right now and completely go against the word, tells me they never encountered the word. And if they have not encountered the word, they have not encountered the Son. If they have not encountered the Son, they are not saved. I can say that with all confidence. Why? Because the fruit shows me everything I need to know. They use the name of God. They use his title. They use the offices he created. They use his name. But their hearts are far from him. Take away the building, the church, and the funds, they won't talk about God. They won't. Take away the benefits of the funding, take away the giving, take away cash, and none of them will preach. Because they got nothing to preach on. Have them talk about what they did while they were preaching when the office requires an absolute 100% unequivocated devotion to God. When the office requires it, ask them what they did some time ago and watch them say, well, that's back then. And what do you mean it's back then? Were you preaching? Yeah, but that's different. Then watch 10 years later, they come forward and they have to step down from their office, their position, because of something that they did way back in the day. First of all, if you did something way back in the day, did God forgive you or did he not forgive you? That's one. Two, if he did forgive you, did he forgive you to the point where you are now able to preach? And if you're not able to preach, how did you come to preach? So either you didn't stop, you didn't see it as a problem, or you're stopping now because you got caught. I think they're stopping because they were caught, not because of any conviction. They were caught. They never repented of those things. They never let go of those things. In fact, they were fine with those things, but they got caught. Somebody either was saying, I'm going to come out and say something, so I better step down. Because if I don't step down, the place that I'm getting my benefits from, because Robert Morris has asked the church to pay him. It was about money. The very opposite of their position is what they go after. Like I said, I don't care what Tony Evans did, but I do believe that he held on to it for as long as he could to get the maximum payout he could in his pension. Whatever the body, the church was offering him by way of pay when he retired or left, he was waiting for. And he'll walk away with money. And if we are the body, you know what should be done? You shouldn't be hiding it. You should be confessing it. And all these people saying, well, you know, you can't be saying he's a preacher. That means he shouldn't be telling everybody his No, it says it in the book. Confess your sins one to another. But they ain't doing that. No, it's found out. They don't lead. We don't have church leaders. Very rare do you find a church leader. Very rare. What you have are charlatans. What you have are people who look to the office for benefit. And it's not to the benefit of the body, to their benefit. And they know it. It is on purpose. I cannot call them brother because they're not. I cannot call them saved because they're not. And don't tell me, how you know if they're saved? Only God can judge me. Well, the word can too. and we're supposed to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Don't do it. Hey, feel free to not do it. Just don't come say, I don't know how I couldn't see it. Oh my gosh, this is such a surprise to me. Oh, how could him of all people? If that's how you get to, then you obviously didn't apply anything that you read, or it tells me you didn't read. If you get caught to the point where, man, I can, oh my, him of all people? Oh my gosh, wow. Oh. Usually they show you long before you see that, but you just think, oh no, it feels good, sounds good, so I'm going to keep it. I'll take it because it's telling me what I want to hear. And then when something really crazy hits the fan, then all of a sudden, how did this happen? The answer is easy. That's how it happened. Easy. No, I don't even think that they consider that at all. This is just what I can observe so far. Nearly all of the mega pastors out there have zero concern about their forgiveness status. I mean, on paper, yes. Internally, no. Because they don't go to the pulpit to preach his word. They go to the pulpit as a job. They go to the pulpit as a job. You want proof that they go to the pulpit as a job? What normally happens when you have a job? You get aggravated with it, right? It becomes a chore. It becomes taxing. And you don't really do your best at it, but you do what you need to do to get paid, right? Okay.
I do tons of stuff I don't like doing because of the vision that God's given me. Can I be hot with y'all, humble, open, and transparent? I don't like studying to preach every Sunday. It is tedious work for me. I start on Wednesday to get to Sunday. And I'm working on Thursday and on Friday and on Saturday. And I'm tweaking up until 30 minutes before service on Sunday. Every week. I hate it.
He hates it. You tell me if he's saved. I don't want to hear this nonsense about, oh, he might be saved just on a. Let me explain something to you. He hates the word. Who is the word? How can you call yourself saved if you hate the word? He is not saved. Michael Todd is not a believer. Michael Todd is not a Christian. Michael Todd is a charlatan and a homosexual acting as though he's a man when all he really wants is to be like Beyonce and Jay-Z. That's all he wants. He has nothing to do with the cloth. He has nothing to do with God. He is none of those things. And he is among many like that. He is among many. Murphy, all of them. They all have the same thing going on. They all are looking to be with men, be loved by men in both ways, revered and in the bedroom. Y'all can call this crass if you want, but it's factual. A man will not dress, behave, act, talk the way they talk and think yourself straight. It's not going to happen. Nope. Nope. And you would never get up there as a pastor and say that you hate the word. This man just has to start from Wednesday to Sunday to be in the word. And I know he's not in the word 24 hours that day. He might be in it for a few 5 hours each day. People work for 8. There are people who are CPAs that do more paperwork than the Bible has pages. And they do that for 9 hours a day because they love their job. He hates his job so much and hates the actual concrete evidence of his job so much that he doesn't even want to study it, but wants to get up to you on Sunday morning and tell you that he's preaching you something. He's eating food that he wants to regurgitate, but wants you to eat it too. Make that one make sense. And this is the story of many people who are behind the cloth and behind the pulpit, and they talk about God and they do all this stuff. They're doing it for the funds. They will say what needs to be said for the money. Look, we all have a history. We do. And in Christ, the history is erased. But for some people, they never take their history to the cross and they continue on, which means you've never actually crossed over into his life. And if that's the case and you're acting like you do, it is only a matter of time before things hit the fan. Mine did. Mine hit the fan. I used to go to church all the time. I was always going to church. I wouldn't miss Sundays. I would be drunk on Saturday night, and I'd still go to church the next day. Nobody knew. I'd have the whole week indulging in my stuff. Went to church on Sunday. Nobody knew. We all have a past, but eventually it gets splattered against the wall. And your decision after it gets splattered is to either continue with it or not. These guys found a way to turn their history into profit under the guise of God. But when you look around, what they're actually telling you has very little to do with God at all. And the reason it has very little to do with God is because they don't know him. They can speak about, but they don't know him. Exactly, Chris. Let no man teach you. If your first teacher isn't God, start over. If your first teacher isn't God, start over. He has to be first. He has to be the one you come to. He's the one that saves you. Not a pastor, not a church. He does. Get to know who your employer is. And then maybe you'll understand your job. And then you'll understand that, wow, my boss really takes care of me. All I have to do is do what he says. And because I know him, I have no problem doing what he says. He's a fair boss. He's a loving boss. As long as I know my boss, I don't stress over my work. When I tell him I hate what you got to tell me to do and I'm not doing that, your work becomes labor. And pretty soon you start a revolt within the confines of the business. And then you're going to get fired. Some people don't even work there and they come in acting like they run the place. They call them Karens, by the way. People that walk into your business and trying to tell you how to do your job. Those are the mega pastors. They walk up into God's church and try to tell God how to run things. They're not a part of the church. They don't attend there. They have no affiliation with him, but they walk in like a Karen trying to tell everybody what to do. And then want to rifle through all the funds and all of this. They want to take over something that's not even theirs. Karens. Spiritual Karens is what they are. Or Kens. Now I prefer Karens because all of them act very feminine. They don't have a spot in the kingdom, but they love using the name. They break into your house, take your FUBUs, put them on, and they say it's theirs. Then you see them walking around with FUBUs, and you think, wait a minute, that look an awful lot like mine. But then you realize, wait a minute, that don't even fit them right. That's the same stain I got from my spaghetti sauce last week. That's mine. Then you ask them how they got that. Oh, Bro, just give me back my pants. What's wrong with you, boy? And then they get exposed. Now, all of a sudden, they got no pants because they never really went and got their own. They didn't get their own. They parade around with somebody else's stuff on. My advice, if you don't know the nature of God, then the nature of man can fool you to think that it's of God. But when you have a litmus test, like he says in his word, which is why I tell you to read and read, you'll understand that when you see somebody, you can easily differentiate them from your father. You can easily tell that's not my sibling. The weird thing about family is this too, right? Those even who are adopted in or grafted into the family, because I have kids like that, by the way. You know, my wife had kids before me. She had 3 boys, right? The weird thing about love and being grafted into a family and being accepted into a family, after a while, people don't know that you were never part at the beginning. They can't tell. No one can tell that Caleb isn't mine. They had no clue that the oldest son I have ain't mine by blood. The kid looks exactly like me. He looks like he is a actual blend of myself and my wife. There would be you could look at us and you would never know that he wasn't my blood kid. Him and the smallest one act exactly the same. They're similar in their bit. They look, him and all of his brother, they look the same. But they're not of the house of Brown by blood. They were grafted in. And after a while of being in the family, they start to look, act like the family. And there's almost no line where you can say that doesn't look like it's part of that brand. That's a Brown. Even with a different last name, he's still a Brown. It's the weirdest thing, but the coolest thing ever, because it's an example exactly of how we've been grafted in. And when you abide and live with and love the Father, you end up becoming more and more a reflection of him. And you can always tell. You don't no, you don't look like Dad. Something ain't, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. You start to think, wait a minute, something feels a little off about you. Something feels off. I'm going to show this to you, okay? I'm going to tell you now, this individual by blood ain't mine. Okay, by blood. By blood. By blood is not mine. But I love this kid. I love this kid. I love this boy. Mia might be my favorite. I get that because she was my first. But I love this boy. Love this boy. You see, when you become a member of his family, God's family, you start to reflect the Father. And people around mistake you for a new person. They place you automatically in a certain family because of how you present. These individuals that we talked about do not present and represent the Father. They don't resemble him. They don't reflect him. They have nothing to do with him. So I cannot call them his. I can't call them his. There is something to be said about hanging out with the Father. There is something to be said about being in his presence all the time. There is something to be said about being part of his family. It will reflect. It becomes a part of who you are. People start to recognize you by that. That's not these men. That's not these men. They do not reflect the Father, and I will never call them brother until they start to. I will never call them brother as long as they're heretics. I will not call them brother as long as they blaspheme. I will never call them brother because they do not belong to the household of God. They don't. No more than sitting in a church makes you a pew. No more than spending a night in your house, in your car makes you homeless. They're not brothers. Dislike that statement all you want. Call it judgmental all you want. I'm weighing them against the book. And from what the book says and in the position they're in, they don't match. They don't match. Am I saying my brother has to be perfect? No. But I'm saying my brother at least has to belong to my father. I mean, for crying out loud. Like, what? What? You got to at least have the same dad, for crying out loud, whether it be by adoption, grafting, or by birth. You have to have the same pops. I'm sorry, we can't be family if you ain't family. You don't even talk to the father. You don't hang out with daddy. You don't know nothing about that. I have another person in my world, right? She is not adopted. She is not blood. None of that. We met her about 7 years ago now. And her name is Valeria. She watches once in a while. She's always over at our house, okay? Mexican girl. Not legal yet. She's trying to get legal. She came here young. But she has kind of grafted herself into our family. She did that on her own. We didn't ask her to. She did that. She chose, okay? And so she's always over here, B's mom, and I'm Pops. So that's how it happened, okay? Always probing for information, always wanting to know. But even she's starting to reflect behaviors of both B and I. And she's hardly in our house 24/7, but when she's here, she is here. There is a massive difference between people that you see hanging out with God and between them and people that say they know him and say they represent him, but have nothing to do with him. All you have to do is know the Father to know them. And if you know the Father, you will see something ain't right. Something ain't right. That's called discernment. And the only way you can discern is by knowing him. Knowing him. He is the blueprint. And if the rest don't match up to the blueprint, you know it wasn't drawn by the architect. Tomorrow, unknown yet, more than likely it'll be covering what happens tonight. I have my suspicions about what will take place. And don't forget, too, we also have all the way till January 20th to see what kind of shenanigans are going to take place. However, I do 100% believe that tonight is a turning point for the American population. And I mean that on both fronts. On one side, the people who are for Trump are in danger of becoming complacent again. And the people who are for Kamala are in danger of remaining complacent. Either way, it could be very scary on both ways, because many of us may see it as a good thing if he wins, which is financially, yes. But just like we did in 16, we become lackadaisical and our spiritual walk takes a backseat because we're not pressured. We're not forced to follow and to come after God. We're forced to just, we want to just, oh, wow, we don't have to deal with her. 4 years of peace. Yeah, that might be. But people can slip easily into being, and then you forget that you have a walk that's still going on. And after this 4 years, if he does win and your reprieve from your persecution goes away, do not forget, now they have their own thing coming in and you might be twice as persecuted. Here's my advice. Regardless of who wins, hear me out. Regardless of who wins, stay connected, stay plugged. That even if persecution comes your way, you're ready. And if persecution doesn't come your way, you're still ready because you're still going to do what you've been doing, which is plugged in. That's all I got to ask you to do. You don't have to. I would suggest that you just prep now. If there is a reprieve for the next 4 years, make sure that you take that time to fully, and I mean fully prep for what will be coming after that. Don't forget, the children of Israel were released and they went for quite some time walking in peace. And then Pharaoh chased after them. Just remember, there's more time after that, possibly. Use the time. If it's a break, use this time to get to know him, okay? Use it. Use it. Do not become lackadaisical. Do not become complacent. Don't just say, oh, this is no time to breathe. The spiritual walk will continue day in, day out. And sometimes, though, the pressing, the pressure keeps you plugged in. When the pressure eases off, we have a tendency to just kind of let go. Don't do that. Don't do that. You don't know how much time you have left in your life, and we don't know how much time the earth has altogether. So don't do that. But either way, we might more than likely talk about it Wednesday morning. Okay? And more so along what it means for believers, not the economy and all that stuff. That's a Savage Patriots topic. We're talking about the spiritual implications of this. Okay, cool. Anyway, Savage Patriots will be on Rumble at 8 Eastern. Too Strong will be on at 8:30 Eastern. So I'll start on Savage, jump over to Too Strong. Both will be covering the election. However, Savage will be going almost all through the night. Too Strong, depending on the situation, we might be an hour, might be an hour and a half. So after Too Strong, I'll be jumping right back over to Savage Patriots for the remainder of the night. So we'll see how that turns out, okay? Just pick whichever platform you want to go to. Too Strong has pretty much their own, we have our own kind of platform of people there. So Savage Patriots, if you can support us there. Either one works. We would like to see you over at Too Strong, just because it will be for a moment. It's not going to be for the rest of the night. And then you guys can come back over to Savage Patriots. That might be the best way to do it. So we'll see. Your choice. I'm not saying which one you should or shouldn't do. So we'll see you guys then tonight, and then possibly tomorrow morning for straight talk on the election aftermath. Anyhow. And for those of you who are still questioning, you know what? No, don't worry about that. We're not even going to talk about that individual. We'll leave that one alone. Scrolling at the bottom, you all know what to do. Talk to God about it. Speak to him. Christmas is coming up. Don't forget there's merch if you want that. Heck, why not get somebody something godly? I don't know. I don't mean it's from God, but with at least a godly message on it. It might be somebody who will not listen to you, and they may listen to a t-shirt. It might be the one thing that they see every day and be like, yeah, that's a reminder, You never know. Anyway, check out the store link. See if there's anything on there. You might want to order it now because it gets kind of crazy with their ordering schedule. So, no, they're not boarding up where I'm at. I don't live in a spot where that kind of crap happens. And if it does kick off, trust me, people are not going to enjoy what happens to them if they try to get into a building here. Let me just put it like this. The good old boys from Arkansas, they all move up here to retire in my town. So it probably ain't the wisest thing. Like when they had that BLM stuff here, I went out with a friend of mine to make sure nothing happened, and there was a presence of people that were with their armaments blocking stores. So you ain't gonna pull none of that crap here. You're not gonna be able. Trust me, you ain't gonna be able to pull that here. You're gonna get a different result than you would in places like Baltimore and New York. It's not Seattle. It's people care about their business. They work too hard, and they're not playing that game with nobody. No, they're not playing that game. Nope. So no, they don't need to board up. They might need, the people that are trying to burn things might need boards for their coffin, but that's about it. I'm dead serious. That's what they go end up needing. They don't play that game here. They don't play that game here. There are still liberals here. I'm not saying no, but they're the majority. They don't play that game. You ain't gonna mess with my hard work and my kids' bellies. Nah, no. No. So anyway, we'll catch you guys tonight. Scrolling at the bottom, you know what to do. And again, if you need shirts, go get them. Purses, cups, all of that stuff's available at the Straight Talk store. Go check it out. And we'll catch you guys later tonight. Wisdom calls to you from the street. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die.